Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. And I'm going to be reading chapter 7. I try to get a couple chapters done. Some of them I may do, in the same reading because they're shorter. So, anyway, chapter 7. Coincidences are spiritual puns. G.K. Chesterton. Gilbert K. Chesterton. Brian stared for a moment at his mentor's face. His eyes had lost the sparkle of only a few moments ago, dulled by some nagging uncertainty. Is there something about this project that has created doubts about your faith, Neil? Brian could hardly believe he was asking the question. Well, no. I guess I wouldn't use those terms. I'll confess that I'm feeling some spiritual anxiety right now, but I have a strong inclination to believe that there are answers to my questions. At least I hope you can help me find them. I won't prod then. Neil forced a smile. I know. I wouldn't have gotten to my position if I didn't honor protocol. I'm working on clearing the way for a greater flow of information to all team members, but for now, we'll all have to be patient. What makes you so sure you'll be authorized to tell us more? Because I have a great deal of authority over this project. I still have my own superiors to report to, but they've been very pliable. They agreed to recruit you when I asked. Yeah, they sure did. What else can you tell me about the team? There are 11 members. 3 are scientists, and the others, like yourself, have a variety of expertises. There's an Air Force colonel who's the military project leader to whom I report, and 2 other base employees. You'll meet most of them tomorrow morning. The schedule is in the folder. I suppose I'll be expected to have read through this by then, Brian asked, flipping through the pages of his folder. Absolutely. It's not Hebrew or hieroglyphics, but try and stay interested, Neil kidded. You bet. I know you probably feel otherwise, but you shouldn't feel like you're a prisoner. You're actually a VIP here. Makes me wonder what they do to people who aren't invited. Trust me, no one gets here uninvited. Well, since I'm so esteemed, can you tell me how to get out of the room? Oh, yes, Neil answered, reaching into his shirt pocket. I'm glad you reminded me. He retrieved what had the appearance of a credit card and handed it to Brian. Just swipe this through the card reader face up, then punch in your numeric ID on the pad. You'll need to do the same to open doors that lead directly to the conference rooms that the teams will be using. To get out of the room or open it for someone else, you'll need to punch in the same number. Yours is the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. Don't let anyone else know it. The security system only allows you one attempt at opening the door from either side. If you use the card incorrectly or punch in the wrong code, the MPs will be alerted to an attempted security violation. Make sure you read the protocols in your folder. Brian nodded. How do I know where the permissible areas are? There aren't that many. But if you want to know now, there's a floor plan in your notebook. It shows a layout of the facility that you're authorized to use. Basically, the map shows only the location and number of other team members' rooms, meeting areas, a recreational and exercise facility, and cafeteria. There's also a laundry room. What? No maid service? Neil grinned. No, but we've taken care of you in other ways. I'm all ears. We've arranged for your mail to be sent to a servicing location. You'll get mail, opened, as you might guess. As far as your bills, you won't have to worry about them anymore. What do you mean? We've electronically transferred all your financial resources to a banking facility used by the Defense Department. Everything is intact, and as you'll be briefed tomorrow, the government will compensate you financially for your service. If you don't mind my saying so, I know you could use the money. I made sure it was enough to set you off to a new start. No problem, Brian said softly. Thanks. One last thing. While you'll be able to get online to do research, you won't be permitted to email anyone outside the base without filtering permission. And even then, it will not be private. Your email program is already set up with the addresses for the other personnel associated with the project, including a steward who can get you any living necessities. Neil looked at his watch and stood up. Time to get on with my other visits, he said, snapping his briefcase closed. Remember, if you need anything, just email the steward. Even at this hour, it's fine. The system is constantly monitored. How reassuring, Brian joked. I have to tell you, Neil, this whole setup makes me a little queasy. I can't help but get the distinct impression that the only people who will know that I'm still alive will be those connected with this project. Neil looked at the floor for a moment, then turned his attention back to Brian. Precisely. It took Brian 3 hours to get all his things in order. His mind kept wandering back to his conversation with Neil. He'd lost his enthusiasm for a late-night visit to the cafeteria after Neil affirmed the extent of his anonymity, opting instead for a hot cup of tea and some cookie fragments he kept in one of his filing cabinet drawers. Despite his friend's assurances that all the precautions were necessary, he was troubled at how easily the government could erase any trace of his whereabouts. The truth was, no one except his landlord and boss would ever notice he was gone. And if anyone wanted to find out where he'd gone, there was no one who would have the drive it would surely take. He had every confidence in Neil's judgment and friendship, but it was obvious that there was a great deal about this assignment that he hadn't been told. He didn't like the vulnerability. The contents of the folder Neil had issued him consisted of little more than schedules, rules, a floor plan, and the names of the other scientists and scholars on the team. The thought dawned on him that although his folder contained a list of participants and their respective fields of expertise, it contained no information on their academic backgrounds. Brian decided to spend some time searching online in the hope that he could find more information on those who would be his colleagues for the foreseeable future. The results were predictably unfruitful. Not one of the names produced any meaningful hits other than their professional affiliations or email addresses until he typed Mark Chadwick into the search engine. A bovine biochemist on a secret military project? Brian shook his head. Makes about as much sense as inviting me. Brian glanced disinterestedly at the screen, cluttered with articles and research reports whose titles he couldn't understand. Suddenly, one article grabbed his attention. He hurriedly clicked on the reference and hastily read the online abstract, his eyes widening more with each paragraph. After a few moments, he sat back in his chair, his mind racing. This just has to be a coincidence, he whispered to himself, but what if it isn't? All right. Thank you. All righty. Chapter 7, I'm going to go ahead and read another one, I think. Bye-bye.